Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that Down the Crooked Path is researched and recorded in Niagara Falls, Ontario, on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Attawandaron, and the Mississauga of Credit First. This land has been home to Indigenous peoples for thousands of years, and we recognize their enduring connection. We are grateful to share these stories on their lands that carry their histories, and we encourage our listeners to reflect on the past, present, and future of the land they call home. Welcome, wanderers, to Journey Down the Crooked Path, a place where the stories are stranger, the shadows stretch longer, and the things that go bump in the night might just be listening. I'm Amanda Joy, your guide into the eerie, the forgotten, and the downright bizarre. Here, we step off the well-lit roads of Canadian Creepies and venture into the murky corners of history, folklore, and the unexplained, where the whispers grow louder and the truth is never quite what it seems. So let's take a deep breath, watch your step, and whatever you do, don't look back. Once you start down the crooked path, you never know what might follow. Canada is a country of vast landscapes and distinct regional charms, with each province providing something truly unique. From the rugged coastlines of Newfoundland to the towering peaks of British Columbia, every corner has its own identity. Alberta is no exception. Known for its breathtaking Rocky Mountains, endless blue skies, and golden prairies, Alberta is home to some of the most productive farmlands in the nation. Nestled in these sprawling prairies lives the backbone of Alberta's agricultural economy, the cattle industry. Alberta's cattle ranchers contribute significantly to Canada's beef production and making the province a vital player in feeding the nation and supporting international markets. Generations of ranchers have worked tirelessly, their livelihoods tied to the land and the cattle that graze in it. It's a way of life defined by hard work, resilience, and an unshakable connection to the land. But within the golden prairies of Alberta lies a dark and puzzling mystery that has left ranchers bewildered for decades. The precision of cattle mutilations and their unexplainable nature haunts those who work the lands. These incidents are more than mere curiosities. They strike at the heart of ranchers' livelihoods and their trust in the natural world around them. What could leave behind such occurrences? Acts so deliberate, yet shrouded in mystery. This story probes into the chilling phenomenon of the Alberta cattle mutilations, exploring the unanswered questions and unraveling the impact on communities that depend so deeply on their cattle. It started off like any other day in Madden, Alberta, the sun shining brightly in the afternoon sky of June 6, 2015, when Karen Farkinson received a call from a neighbor that one of the cows in her field was lying still in the pasture. Karen wandered into the tall grass, and it didn't take her long to find the cow lying on its side, dead. The cow belonged to her brother Don, who leased the pastures from her, and it had given birth about 2 months earlier. Karen had never seen anything like this before. The cow was missing one of her eyes, the entirety of her udder, vagina, and uterus, all of which had been removed with clean and exact precision. The body had just started to bloat, and the calf nearby hadn't started to yet cry for its mother, which indicated to Karen that the cow hadn't been dead for long. How the cow died became quite the mystery. There were no entry or exit wounds that would come with a bullet or a dart, no signs of struggle around the cow, and no blood spattering or pooling. The local RCMP and one constable suggested that the cow perhaps had eaten some poisonous herbs that caused gastro issues, resulting in the cow exploding. But to Dawn and Karen, this was preposterous. The injuries on the cow were clean and smooth, almost surgical. Besides, these herbs didn't grow in the field. Another wildlife officer suggested that the death looked suspicious, insinuating that humans had somehow been involved. 8 years prior to this event, a similar experience happened to lifelong ranchers Joanne and John Fenton. When they came home one summer afternoon to discover a prize 2,000-pound Black Angus bull dead in a corral just about 100 meters from their house. The scene was perplexing, and no initial cause of death could be found. The bull's reproductive organs had been carefully removed from the body. Because of the cost to remove the carcass, the Fentons opted to leave the carcass out in the field and let nature take its course. And what they observed was bizarre. Typically, scavengers who would be drawn to such a trophy meal avoided the body completely. No buzzards or foxes, coyotes, or even the regular insects touched the body. And this is typically something that has happened when cows or an animal has been drugged. These are not isolated cases. Southern Alberta has become an epicenter for cattle mutilation reports during the 1970s. Ranchers discovered cattle with precise bloodless incisions and missing organs such as eyes, tongues, and reproductive parts. In many cases, there were no signs of struggles or predators, deepening the sense of mystery. Between 1979 and 1980 alone, 38 confirmed cases were investigated by the Calgary RCMP, while scavengers like coyotes and birds were cited as the most potential culprit by some veterinarians. Many ranchers were unconvinced, pointing instead to the surgical precision of the cuts. Throughout the 1970s, several theories emerged to explain these mutilations. Some believed that natural predators were responsible, suggesting that scavengers could leave marks resembling surgical cuts. Others argued for cult activity, citing rumors of ritualistic practices in rural areas. And of course, the UFO speculation gained momentum, fueled by reports of strange lights and objects in the sky near the mutilation sites. For ranchers, these incidents were more than just mysterious. They were financially devastating. Losing valuable livestock with no clear answer left many feeling frustrated and helpless. The skepticism surrounding these cases also deterred some from reporting them, fearing ridicule or disbelief. By the end of the decade, despite investigations by the RCMP and local veterinarians, no definitive answer had been found. The cattle mutilations of the 1970s remains one of Alberta's most puzzling mysteries, a chapter in the province's rural history that continues to haunt ranchers and investigators alike. Entering the 1980s, the narrative of Alberta cattle mutilations began to shift as natural explanations gained greater attention. Amongst the prominent theories explored during this time was the role of scavengers. Coyotes, foxes, and birds were increasingly recognized for their influence on carcasses, creating patterns that might be easily to misinterpret as evidence of something more sinister. This new focus highlighted not only on the habits of these scavengers, but also the missteps in distinguishing natural processes from human or otherwise unnatural interferences. Scavengers play a critical ecological role, breaking down carcasses in ways that can appear alarmingly precise. Coyotes, for instance, often target soft tissue such as eyes, tongues, and reproductive organs, as these are the easiest parts to consume. Their sharp teeth can leave behind what appears to be clear surgical cuts, fueling suspicions of deliberate mutilation. Coyotes also drag parts of carcasses away, further complicating the scene and inviting speculation. Similarly, foxes, smaller but equally resourceful scavengers, focus on accessible tissue, leaving partially consumed remains that, to the untrained observer, might seem disturbingly calculated. Then there are birds, such as ravens and magpies, whose sharp beaks and clever feeding habits add another layer of complexity to this mystery. These intelligent creatures often remove eyes and other exposed tissues with such precision that their work can resemble surgical procedures. Environmental factors like drying and decomposition can exacerbate this impression as well, making the marks appear sharper and more deliberate than they actually are. Veterinarian Dr. Craig Hellquist devoted considerable effort to studying these scavenger behaviors. His research underscored that soft tissues are the first to be targeted, not due to any unusual preference, but simply because they are the most accessible and decompose rapidly. Alberta's dry climate often amplifies the appearance of scavenger activity, with dehydration causing tissue to shrink and sharpen around bite marks. Dr. Hellquist also addressed the commonly noted absence of blood, explaining that this phenomenon is natural. After death, blood pools internally or is absorbed into the ground, particularly in dry conditions like the Alberta prairies. This lack of visible blood often leads to claims of foul play, despite its entirely ordinary cause. The misinterpretation of scavenger activity can be contributed to a blend of cultural and emotional factors. During the 1980s, public's imagination was saturated with tales of UFOs and cult-like rituals, both of which provided an alluring lens through which to view these incidents. Additionally, the financial toll on ranchers who saw cattle not just as livestock, but as the backbone of their livelihoods, deepened their frustration and skepticism towards natural explanations. Many sought answers that could match the emotional gravity of their loss, making them more inclined to entertain extraordinary theories. The 1990s marked another significant chapter in Alberta cattle mutilation history, with St. Paul becoming a central point for numerous unexplained incidents. The mutilations often left ranchers baffled and searching for answers. This period saw an increased scrutiny of cases, with investigations uncovering patterns that raised more questions than they did answers. Amongst these were the precision and bloodless nature of the mutilations, the manner in which the carcasses were found, and strange markings that defied easy explanation. St. Paul, already known for its UFO landing pad built in 1967 as a part of a centennial project, became a hub for the discussion on extraterrestrial theories. The town even established a toll-free number, 1-800-C-UFOs, to report sightings and related phenomenon. Fern Bazell, a retired rancher and cattle judge from the area, emerged as a prominent figure in the investigation of these mutilations. His expertise in cattle allowed him to identify patterns that he believed were inconsistent with predator activity. Fern noted that many of the mutilated animals were found on their backs, with their tongues and part of their faces removed. Genitals, teats, and areas around the anus were often surgically excised. The skin was peeled away in straight lines resembling the letter M. Now, Fern had been around cattle his entire life, and so he claimed he knew for sure that there was an exact difference between scavenger marks and surgical marks. Fern's skepticism of natural explanations stemmed from the precision of the cuts. He argued that predators would not selectively consume hair and hide while leaving other parts untouched. His investigation revealed another peculiarity, such as small circles of hide removed from the carcasses, which he speculated might somehow be related to how the animals were killed or how their blood was extracted. Fern shared his findings at conferences, including St. Paul's UFO and Cattle Mutilation Conference, where he presented slide after slide of mutilated cattle to audiences of hundreds. He also collaborated with the local Chamber of Commerce and economic development officials to investigate cases across the prairies. The connection between cattle mutilations and UFO sightings gained traction during this period. Fern himself never claimed to have seen a UFO, but he acknowledged the possibility of extraterrestrial involvement based on the evidence he encountered. Canada's cases linked to UFO sightings included reports from St. Paul and surrounding areas, where locals described strange lights and objects in the sky near mutilation sites. These accounts added to the mystery and fueled debates about the origins of these mutilations. Fern's work extended beyond Alberta as well, as he investigated cases in Saskatchewan and British Columbia. His dedication earned him respect with the community, despite skepticism from veterinarians, RCMP officers, and insurance investigators, who often attributed these mutilations to predators. In the 1990s, this solidified St. Paul's reputation as a center for UFO and cattle mutilation research, with Fern's contributions playing a key role in shaping the discourse. During the 1970s and the 1980s, the theories that cults might be responsible for cattle mutilations gained traction. Fern Bazell's, while skeptical of many explanations, didn't entirely dismiss the possibility of cult involvement. This theory was bolstered by Calgary's RCMP's belief during the late 1970s wave of mutilations that a cult could be behind the incidents. Despite the RCMP suspicions, no arrests were ever made, though, leaving the theory unproven but persistent. The idea of cult involvement persisted for several reasons. First, the precise and ritualistic nature of mutilations, such as the removal of specific organs and the lack of blood at the scene. This aligned with the public's perception of cult or ritualistic practices. For example, the belief that blood or body parts such as a tongue were desirable for ceremonial purposes. Others made connection to the time of year the mutilations seemed to occur, which was usually around the fall, typically associated with harvest and death. Second, the cultural context of the time played a significant role. The 1970s and the 1980s saw a rise in public fear of cults, fueled by high-profile cases such as the Jonestown Massacre in 1978 and the broader cult of satanic panic in the 80s. These events created fertile ground for attributing unexplained phenomenon to cult activity. Examples of cult behavior in Canada during these periods reinforce those fears. One notable case was the Anthill Kids, a cult led by Roche Thiel in Quebec during the late 1970s and the 1980s. This group was infamous for its extreme and violent practices, including physical abuse and mutilation of its members. While the Anthill Kids were not linked to cattle mutilations, their existence demonstrated the potential for cults to engage in bizarre and harmful activities, leading credibility to the idea that cults could be responsible for the mutilations. Another example is the Order of the Solar Temple, a secretive group with ties to Canada, Switzerland, and France. While the group's most infamous activities occurred in the 1990s, its roots can be traced back to earlier decades. The Solar Temple is known for its apocalyptic belief and ritualistic practices, which included human sacrifices in later years. Though not directly connected to cattle mutilations, the group existence did add to the public's fear of cult and potential for harm. The persistence of the cult theory, despite lack of concrete evidence, can also be attributed to the emotional and psychological impact of the mutilations on ranchers and communities. The loss of livestock, combined with the eerie and unexplained nature of these incidents, creates a sense of vulnerability and a need for answer. In the absence of definable explanations, the idea of cult involvement provides a narrative that resonates with the fears and anxieties of the time. Modern cattle mutilations, while less frequent than previous decades, continues to perplex ranchers. The incidents spanning from 2010 to present have reignited debates over nature versus supernatural explanations, with scavengers emerging once again as the primary focus of investigations. However, the definitive answers still remain elusive, leaving the phenomenon shrouded in mystery. One notable case is that of Felix Smittle, a farmer near St. Paul, Alberta, who discovered one of his cows dead in a field, missing its eyes, tongue, one ear, and its sex organs. For Felix, he reported that similar mutilations had occurred on his farm over the year, typically in the fall. These cases, like many other, lacked clear evidence of predator activity, with no traces of blood found at the scene. And his experience mirrored those of Karen Farquharson. The Farquharson's discovery prompted call for better reporting and investigation protocols, emphasizing the need to centralizing the need for a centralized registry to track and analyze these incidents. Farquharsons have played a significant role in keeping cattle mutilations in the public eye. Karen particularly advocates for thorough investigation and compensation for the affected farmers, as highlighted by the challenges faced by ranchers during these unexplained losses. The Farkinsons' efforts have drawn attention to the gaps in current investigation practices, urging authorities to take these cases more seriously and provide more research for proper analysis. But as of 2010, the focus has shifted back to scavengers as the primary cause of cattle mutilation, with researchers once again citing the feeding habits of coyotes, foxes, and birds, as well as environmental factors such as the dry heat. The persistence of cattle mutilation underscores the need for improved reporting and investigation protocols, as many cases go unreported due to skepticism, leaving researchers with incomplete data. Establishing a centralized register and providing resources for autopsies and forensic analysis could help uncover the truth behind many of these incidents. Many ranchers do not opt for autopsy due to the extreme cost, as they are already taking a financial hit. From the first reports in the 1970s to the modern cases of the 2010s, these incidences have captivated ranchers, researchers, and the community alike. Alberta's history is rich in theories, scavengers, cults, UFOs, and each of them has played a role in shaping the narrative. Yet this phenomenon is not confined to Alberta or even Canada. Cattle mutilations have been reported worldwide, from the United States to South America, Europe, and beyond. Globally, the patterns are strikingly similar: precise precisions, missing organs, and the absence of blood. In the United States, the phenomenon gained significant attention also in the 1970s, with cases in Colorado and New Mexico sparking debates about extraterrestrial involvement. South America has also seen its fair share of mutilations, particularly in Argentina, where ranchers have reported eerily similar findings. Across Europe, sporadic cases keep the mystery alive and investigators exploring both natural and supernatural explanations since the 1600s. What ties these cases together is a lack of definitive answers. While scavengers remain the most plausible explanation for many incidents, the precision of the cuts and absence of blood continues to challenge conventional understanding. Advances in forensic science and veterinary pathology have helped shed a bit of light on some aspects, but the mystery still persists. In Alberta, figures like Karen and Fern, they've kept the conversation going, advocating for better reporting and investigation protocols. As researchers worldwide continue to explore the phenomenon, there is hope that the truth may finally come to light. The story of cattle mutilations is far from over, and its tale spans decades and continents, blending science, speculation, and the enduring allure of the unknown. Perhaps with continued investigation and collaboration, the answers that have eluded us for so long will finally be uncovered.
That was an eerie journey down the crooked path with Amanda. How cool was that? If you loved it, don't forget to follow Down the Crooked Path on Instagram and TikTok. Amanda shares some really fun interactive content over there, and trust me, it gets even creepier. Down the Crooked Path is our sister podcast, and you can catch new episodes every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're into the paranormal, folklore, and strange little corners of the world, we've got you covered. Thank you to Kyle McDonald for editing and composing our theme song.